Hi everyone, my name's Louisa Dickins, co-founder of LMRE. So I've just come back from my little Italian tour in Puglia, and I thought I'd start my week off with a vlog about culture. And today I've got an old friend of mine in this space, Donald Davidoff, joining me, who is the co-founder and CEO of REBA. So welcome, Donald.
Thank you, Lisa. Good to be with you.
So for context, Donald and I met many years ago. Was it about 5, 6 years ago,
Oh
Donald?
yeah, 5 or 6 years ago. It was at a retcon. No,
It was that
Cretek.
Cretek. Shout out to
Cretek.
Michael
That's right.
Beckerman.
Cretek. Shout out to Michael Beckerman. Cretek. Yes.
And I feel like it was quite a pivotal point for both our businesses. I mean, I was very inexperienced and I guess still am, but this is where it was a really exciting point for both our businesses, especially yours, Donald. And we're going to talk about how you successfully scaled and grown and built brand and all these good things in a moment. But that's sort of where we connected. And I thought it was 2 weeks ago where we sort of had a phone call to sort of exchange a few notes. But I think what we did agree on is the importance of culture to any successful business building. So I guess for the audience listening into this, Donald, if you could share a little bit about yourself, your story, and then we're going to go into the questions, which are going to be like, what is the definition of culture?
Yep.
How does it change as the business changes and the role of it? How important is it to scaling business? What are the metrics? Everything like that. But first things first, I want to give it a quick introduction for the audience who may have not met you yet.
Yeah, so REBA, or Real Estate Business Analytics, we call ourselves a connected analytics platform in the rental housing industry. What do I mean by that? We connect different systems of record into a single source of truth. We connect departments in a way that helps break down silos, and we connect people in a way that fosters collaboration, right? All with data and data analytics at the core. So a BI platform as a service solution, and then predictive analytics applications built on top of that. Budget and forecasting, pricing and revenue management, things like that. My background, I'm trained as an engineer, worked in software, ended up with many years with a company called Archstone, which was an S&P 500 REIT, real estate investment trust, second largest market cap at the time of any of the publicly traded REITs. And yeah, I got into the industry with through the pricing and revenue management angle, and business intelligence was such a key component of that. That's kind of how all this nests together in my rather interesting career.
Amazing. Thank you for that introduction. So right, let's start off. Let's talk about culture. Let's talk about your growth. So when you started the company, how did you define culture and what you wanted to build, and how's that changed over time, fast forwarding the clock?
Yeah, I mean, culture's always been really important to me. I mean, it's been a passion study of mine, honestly, since I was about 17, 18, 19 years old. I think when I read Tom Peters' Passion for Excellence, and then many, many other things since then. I actually did my master's thesis on organizational culture as well. I think I was telling you when we were chatting a couple weeks ago, most entrepreneurs, when they start a business, right, there's two things they talk about. They talk about their product, and they talk about how they're going to fundraise, because the product is the inspiration and idea, and you can't do it without the fundraising. I have a partner and co-founder, Chris Brust, who's our chief product officer, and I've worked with him, God, now for 26 years. So back when we started, it was just over 20 years. And I think one of the things that we're really proud of is obviously we had the idea of the product, or we wouldn't be talking about starting a business, but we honestly talked about culture before we started talking about fundraising. Right? What kind of company did we want to build? What kind of leaders did we want to be? We both had the benefit of having worked at Archstone. For anybody in the rental housing industry that knows anyone affiliated with Archstone, God, it's been 13 years since the equity in Avalon Bay did a private acquisition of all the Archstone assets. But in my career, Archstone was head and shoulders the best culture, and it was a very purposeful culture, anything I've ever been associated with. And so, Chris and I, having had that experience, why was it the best? Well, so first of all, it was it was purposeful and it was consistent. And I'll tell a little anecdote that sort of shows the purposefulness. In terms of the consistency, I got introduced to Archstone when they were a customer of mine. I was at a company called Tal Solutions, which was a boutique pricing and revenue management shop. And I was doing the business analysis work that led to the design and build of software called LRO, which is very well known as having changed how the industry priced. I did north of 30 interviews during that BA work. Archstone had an East, West, and Central division. So I met people East, West, and Central in corporate. I met people from the bottom to the top, leasing managers to community managers to regionals, VPs. The CEO and the CFO and the COO were interviewed. Everybody said the same thing. Like I had two questions. This is good BA advice in software. I had two questions for big change. Explain to me or name for me a software or an initiative that worked really well, and why did it work so well? And everybody named the same one and the same reasons. And then I said, well, name an initiative that didn't work so well. Right? Maybe even one that crashed and burned. And why did it crash and burn? Everybody named the same one. I came back after all those interviews to my boss. I mean, I was manager level at the time. We were talking 1999. And I said, oh my God, I've either met the Stepford wives of corporate America or the one organization that top to bottom, east to west, is singing the same tune. So that was the consistency. On the purpose, it is very interesting. I mean, to give you an idea of how ingrained it is, it's been 13 years since I left Archstone. Actually, 14 years since I left Archstone. And I can tell you the core values were camaraderie, honesty and integrity. Leadership, entrepreneurial spirit, and innovation. The I was innovation. So they actually came up with an acronym, CHILES, CHILES. So camaraderie, honesty and ethics, innovation, leadership, entrepreneurial spirit. I still remember that. Okay. I asked the one of the senior execs once, like, why is teamwork not a core value? Because we seem to really value teamwork here. And she said, that's very interesting, Donald. Actually, when we had the retreat where we were finalizing all this, teamwork was on the list of finalists. And we had a conversation and it went something like this. Well, if teamwork is a core value, then every decision has to be done by a team. And one of the things that they realized was, well, sometimes the best team for decisions is a team of one, which isn't really teamwork. So we don't want to say something's a core value and then not live it 100%. But there was some essence of teamwork that was like, what was the essence that was universal? And that's where they came up with the C, or camaraderie. We truly enjoy working with each other. So even when someone is being dictatorial because that's the right answer at that moment, it still is in a spirit of enjoying working with each other and camaraderie. So that kind of purposefulness just permeated everything. And there were activities that, reminded everybody and onboarded people, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the purposefulness and the consistency was the foundation. And that's what Chris and I tried to replicate.
Interesting. LMRE team values is entrepreneurship, honesty, and teamwork. But interesting what you say, that sometimes different coaching or leadership styles you have to change no matter what day of the week it is. What about, so obviously your previous business values. What's REBA's values? What do you sort of live by? How do you embed it day by day with your co-founders?
So we met over a series. Well, we had a series of meetings with the initial executive leadership team a couple years in. Chris and I talked about the culture we wanted, but we decided, we needed to grow a little bit and get some other people before we really wanted to codify the core values. We actually have a card that everybody gets that's right by the side of my desk that has our core values listed there. And so what we came upon, not surprisingly, it overlaps a lot with Archstone because Chris and I believed in that culture, but it really is our own culture, and it's about us as a tech company. So we're innovative, we're centered on our customers, we have empathy for all we interact with, and that's not just customers but our own associates. We're confident yet humble, right? We don't lack ego, but we know we can learn from every single person we meet. We're honest and authentic. Everybody talks about honesty and integrity. I think I think those words have been so overused, it's become a bit buzzwordy. So I like bringing in the notion of authenticity.
Mm.
Um, we're persistent, which is really key to how we built our product and solved some problems that other people haven't been able to. And then we have fun. And so that's kind of our version of camaraderie. We, again, we really enjoy working with each other, but we're a very serious business and we don't take ourselves too seriously.
And how did, I guess, day by day, give me some examples of how you guys
Well, I mean,
will encourage
I'll
it
give
to
one
be cut
example
down.
early on. And I won't name the property management system because I'm not out to ding anybody, but we were working with a set of APIs for a particular property management system, and we could not get the lead counts to match. Like literally everything else was validated. Our launch customer was ready to go, but this was a deal breaker. Like if we didn't solve it, we were going to lose the customer and probably others eventually as well. And what we found out was the PMS deduped guest cards when they saw they were duplicate, but their API didn't indicate which guest cards deduped from which other guest cards. And so, okay, like over the course of a year, we could have the right count, but we couldn't have the right count week to week to week, not knowing what was deduped. The PMS acknowledged that it was an issue, but it wasn't really high on their roadmap to fix since we were the first ones to ever ask for it. So that was quite a stunner. But I was just like, it's just data. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. And we pecked and pecked and pecked, and we finally found that there was an API for a lead report. That if you took that API and you sorted it just right, you could actually infer accurately which guest card key deduped from which guest card key. So we use that to then back into understanding the leads themselves, and that customer and others with that PMS are still happy customers. So I always hold that one up as an example of persistence. I mean, lots of examples of how we try to have fun together, et cetera. But anyway, that's a good example.
What about so I think it's very easy to stereotype and make fun of tech companies and how they have all these big guys about company values and like you get whatever number of days of holiday you want and it's all just so fun when really it is just unorganized chaos. What metrics do you go by to like? Yeah,
I mean I think all that's it's all fine and good, but to me that's surface level. That's not real. I mean we don't we don't rely on that to say that we're living our core values or that we built this great culture. I'm a huge fan of the Net Promoter Score. So for those, I'm guessing many of your listeners have heard of it. Fred Reichheld and Bain Companies pioneered this back in the late 90s or early aughts. So we use NPS scoring with our associates. We, every fall in advance of our leadership retreat, we do an employee survey anonymously. We've done it 3 years in a row now. Our first 18, 20 months, the founders were the only employees. So, that's why only 3, even though we're a 5+ year old company. The first year we had about 12 employees and we were plus 100. So the way NPS works, you ask a single question: how likely are you to refer a friend or colleague to work at the company? 9 or 10 is +1. 7 or 8 is 0. Anything 1 to 6 is -1. And then you have a net score anywhere from -100% to +100%. So we had only 12 employees. It was, very tight knit. We scored +100. Great. Proud of that, but doesn't really have any meaning that early. The next year, we had a lot more employees and we scored +75, which is world class. I was ready for it to be as low as +50. We were, we're a new startup. We're thrashing. There's tons of stress. Work-life balance is important, but not always 100% possible in a startup, et cetera. Last fall was the real acid test because we had grown substantially at that point. We were up to about 60 employees and lots and lots of great stuff happening and lots and lots of thrash. And I was ready for it to go down again. +79.4, we were up 4.4 points from the prior year. So I think that measure is you can't hide from it. You can't run from it. And, I love the NPS theory. It's one thing to ask about satisfaction. but it's another thing to ask whether somebody would put their name on the line in recommending you. And by the way, more than half of our employees have come from word of mouth. So apologies to LMRE, which helps hire people. And we've got a couple that we hired from you guys and love it. But the fact that more than half of our employees come from word of mouth is another anecdotal measure that's really meaningful to me.
I think at the beginning of this conversation, you said about consistency of message, consistency of values. I think that's so important. I think it's consistency of day-to-day energy within performing whatever job you're doing, or consistency of getting the team together, team building to make sure that everyone's on the same mission. I know at LMRE, we spend a lot of money on it, as well as a lot of time, but my business, and everyone can see on LinkedIn metrics how the numbers of people go up, LinkedIn insights and down, and it's finally we're at a really good level, but that has come from embedding in culture and our people the whole time. It's the fun part of the job, right?
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's interesting when you talk about that. I mean, we spend a lot of time and money. We're a virtual company, so our people are spread across the country, even across the world. Every other week, we have a 30-minute get together, share some company news, have a little bit of fun. Every new employee does 2 truths and a lie, so we get to know them. Things like that. We have an annual book club, so it's tied to a theme for the company, but people can get together in small groups and sort of study the book and then report back out to all. We invest heavily. REBA Connect is our annual conference for all associates. So we pay to bring everybody in the company to Vail for a couple days for REBA Connect. And then, other things we do around the year in terms of that. We've got a specific onboarding program around the core values, et cetera. So yeah, consistency doesn't come by accident. You do have to invest the time and the money to make it happen.
I think that reconnecting, the consistent learning and development, like we've just set up a training academy, shout out for Lily for doing it. Can't believe it's taken me this long to get it in, but that's what the people want. For the audience, I'm conscious of sort of time here. What things have obviously been going really well for REBA, and I hope it continues. Nothing's perfect, as we both know. What do you wish you'd known?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite questions. When I ask other people, what did I wish I knew? I think, on a personal level, I wish I'd known how lonely being a CEO is. I've consulted for CEOs. I've been on boards. I intellectually understood it. It really hit me a couple years in, just because, everybody has thoughts, positive and negative, and you always have someone to turn to kind of share the negative and figure it out. Well, I can't share that with my board. I don't want to scare them that I'm worried about something. Even my partner, I love Chris, but I don't want to scare him either. I've built a sort of kitchen cabinet of people I can rely on, some in the industry, some outside the industry, that I can have those vulnerable moments with. So I wish I knew that. I mean, in terms of culture, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I've been studying it all my life. There's nothing that I wish I had known. What I will say is, this being the first time I'm in the seat of a more than a dozen people in a company where I, am the leader. I'm not just an influencer as a mid-level exec commenting to the CEO. Not that I wish I'd known it, but I would advise myself from back then and anybody else doing this. It's a Sisyphean task. You're rolling that rock up the hill every single day, and there's no rest for the weary. It's funny. I always use the metaphor. People like the metaphor of an emotional bank account. It's actually a bad metaphor, because when I put money in a bank account, it accrues interest. I can leave it alone and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're smiling because you know where I'm going, right? The emotional bank account, you put something into somebody's emotional bank account and you leave it alone and it atrophies, right? It goes down over time. It doesn't go up. And so that's where the metaphor breaks down. And I intellectually knew that, but the energy and the intentionality that's needed to just every day, every week, pay attention to that.
Yeah.
You have to experience it to really know it. You can't just intellectually know it. So maybe that's a better answer to the question.
Going back to again what you said earlier, authenticity, there's not enough of that out there. I love you being real there. I'm just it was my first 2 weeks off, I think, and since setting up LMRE in 2019, and I listened to every podcast I could, read every self-help book, but a lot of what I was reading about is AI, the position it has within our businesses. And I use AI. Loads of our clients, revolve around it. But I think everyone relies on ChatGPT. Definitely do it. But ChatGPT doesn't teach anyone to be authentic. It doesn't teach people how to build relationships. And I think that is what will affect culture and the growth of businesses. I think definitely use it, but there's a balance or juggling act to be had there.
Yeah, I would think of AI and whether ChatGPT or Grok or any of the other tools out there, think of it as a junior assistant, a junior analyst, a junior researcher, sort of all rolled up into one. It's a great resource, but it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't replace people. In the short term, we're obviously going all in on how AI can make us more productive and more efficient, et cetera. In fact, we're about to announce to the team some new initiatives around that. Short term, I'm not worried. I will say long term, I'm a little bit worried about how do people out of college make the move from, novice with a degree to expert, both on the competence and EQ side, right? On the EQ side, you need to interact with people, not with computers to get there. And on the competency side, a lot of what today's quality of AI is good at is what those junior people do. Exactly. They sort of know something, but you've got to watch out. It can make dumb mistakes. I mean, the stories in the papers of attorneys who've gotten sanctioned by judges because they used ChatGPT or some other Gen AI to create a brief, and they didn't bother to check that the citations were actually real because it hallucinated. Or, just a couple weeks ago when our wonderful government released the Make America Healthy Again report, and it cited studies that didn't exist because they obviously, they didn't do the vetting after trying to leverage AI. Those mistakes used to be made. Well, the equivalent of those mistakes used to be made by junior people who then learned how to get better and became senior. So I don't have the answer today, and it's also new. We're all figuring it out together. The good news is I don't have to worry about it for the next year, but I wonder, like, over the next 10 years, how college graduates are going to, develop into the positions that folks like you and I are in right now.
Yeah. If I go back to uni again, I'd study like nuclear energy or something like that. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't be able to get in on a course like that.
I mean, it's interesting because I have a daughter who's got a PhD in biomed engineering, and you would think, the really hairy stuff like proteomics, the study of proteins. Well, AI does all the grunt work for the study of proteins, and then she with the PhD helps interpret it. And again, I'm back to then what's the role for the undergrad? The person with just an undergraduate degree. So I don't know. That's going to be something that business and society is going to have to figure out over the next 10 years.
Well, outside of that, Donald, share something with the audience what you do to sort of wind down. I mean, I know it, and it's a lovely activity. What is it for the audience?
Well, yeah, I think the one you're referring to is what I do with music on the music business. I will tell you, I watch a stunning amount of TV, which would surprise most people who know me, but it's how I turn off my brain and decompress. But no, my leave it to me. My hobby is a business. So my hobby is this thing called Fan Club Cruises. You can go to fanclubcruises.com and see it. But I grew up in the travel business, and actually when I got out of the Air Force, went to work with my parents in the travel business. And one of the things I started in the late 90s was Fan Club Cruises, and I've held on to it as a side thing. I don't like the term side hustle. Hustle in my generation has a negative connotation. So it's just, it's my hobby, but I'm not a hobbyist. And we contract with independent artists, Americana, folk, that kind of music, and they promote to their fans, and we take them on a cruise, and fans have a sort of Uber VIP experience. We do about 8 to 12 of them a year. I do not go on all of them. I have a business to run, but I do go on. I do on a couple. And in fact, actually, I'm going to Vegas tomorrow for NAA's Apartmentalize, and then Friday I fly to Amsterdam to take 90 fans of Ellis Paul on a cruise to the Norwegian fjords out of Amsterdam. I'm actually going to try to treat that week as a vacation as well.
I think that sounds like a good idea. You know what? There should be a conference, whether it be in the multifamily space or single family, on a boat. It's great for networking because no one can get off and you are forced to meet. Maybe that's the next idea.
I've thought about it before. There are some conferences at sea. I think the biggest challenge is getting is who wants to go to their boss to get that approved. It just sounds like such a boondoggle. To your point, it's actually better. Like when nobody just wanders off the way they wander away from a hotel. So I can make the logical argument that it's better for networking quality, but the optics, got to be aware of the optics.
I think we're on something, but we'll pick it up once you're back from your little trip in Amsterdam. But Donald, thank you so much for sharing your notes on culture with us, and looking forward to catching up with you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa.